Welcome to Mindsets to Methods, the podcast for teenagers and their parents, with teen coach ArthurCWoods and Elizabeth Joy Woods.
Hey, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time of day it is when you are listening. Thanks so much for joining us on the Mindset to Methods podcast. My name is Elizabeth Joy Woods, and I'm here with my talented, not so lovely, that's kind of my title, lovely and talented. Anyway, I'm here with my husband, who is a very nice guy. I approve of him. Arthur. Say hello to everyone, Arthur Woods.
Well, hello, everyone. I've never been called not so lovely.
Sorry, I mean... Lovely is a rather feminine term, and I've kind of taken it personally, so I didn't want to portray you as lovely, even though you are a lovely person.
I understand.
Lovely is kind of like a British word that they use more commonly in that language. So maybe, sure, if we have accents, you could be lovely.
No, that would be horrible. I can't do an accent.
Okay. So today we're going to be talking about limiting beliefs, as I am told, and really limiting beliefs are lies that we tell about ourselves. So, dear husband, who is no longer lovely, can you tell me a lie that you have once told in your lifetime?
Yeah, I've never told a lie. Ever.
Good. Bravo. Bravo. I would not consider you a liar at all. You are by far one of the most trustworthy people I know, but I also know that you were once a child.
Oh, yes.
And children tend to lie. So tell me a story. I know you've got one in the bank there.
Okay, yeah. So I was knowing that you were going to ask me this question. I was prepared for this one. So when I was a little younger,
like 2 years old.
No, I was I don't know, elementary school, something like that.
Okay.
I went running out of the house because I was on a bowling league, and I was excited to go bowling on a Saturday morning, as you know, all cool kids do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm running out of the house, and I'm running to the bowling alley because that it was close enough to walk to. And right as I'm running out the door to go to the bowling alley, my father says, "Arthur, did you brush your teeth?" And of course I said,
Yes,
Daddy, of course I brush my teeth. And then Daddy said, are you sure? And of course I said,
yes,
Daddy, I'm sure. And he said, well, just hold on a minute there, young man. And now you probably can figure out by now that I had not in fact brushed my teeth.
You were stanky.
I was lying about it. You may also be able to figure out at this point that somehow my dad cracked the code on my lie. So he said, he is a genius. He said, "Come here, young man." And that's never a good, young man. That's not a good thing. So he said, "I'm just curious, which toothpaste did you use when you brushed your teeth this morning?" And I said, "I don't remember, whatever's in the bathroom." And he said, "Oh, okay, just show me which one it is."
Oh, my word.
So I was like, okay, no problem. I'm doubling down on this lie here. And I go walking into the bathroom, and I open up the medicine cabinet, and guess what? There's no toothpaste in there.
Nailed.
Apparently we had just run out, so there hadn't been any there in this morning. So I'm like, oh crap, like I'm gonna triple down now.
Yeah.
And so I opened up the cabinet under the sink, just kind of crossing my fingers and hoping to God above that there was another like tube of toothpaste in there that I could say I used. So
that's actually pretty smart.
I know, I was incredibly intelligent. Also, I guess a huge liar at the time. But so I opened up the cabinet below.
Sure. I mean, we can combine those two words. That would be awesome.
Sink, beneath the sink. And sure enough, there was a tube of toothpaste there.
Really?
Yep. And I pulled it out, and I said, "This is the tube of toothpaste that I used." And he said, "Are you sure?"
Oh, my word.
And I said, "Yep." And he said, "Because I just put that there right before you went out of the house. And I happen to know that you did not use that tube of toothpaste." And I could not quadruple down. I was out of things to say, and I just kind of went quiet. And he said, "Have fun bowling." We'll talk about this when you get
Oh
home.
my word. What a shadow over your bowling game.
Yep. We will talk about this when you get home.
And what ended up happening? Were you grounded for like a week? I mean, knowing your father, I feel like there were massive consequences for the toothpaste incident.
No, and here's the incredible thing. I don't think my dad forgot. That seems very, very unlikely. However, when I got home, ready to talk about this with my dad, he never mentioned it again.
That's nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking he probably didn't forget. He just gave me some grace, some mercy, and I appreciate that.
I feel like it was appropriate. Like the infringement was minor. I mean, how many kid does not brush their teeth?
Exactly.
Yeah, and lies about it. Here's my one question though. Did you wet the toothbrush? Did you go in and like wet the toothbrush? Because I've had kids do that to me. They're like, oh, I brush my teeth, but it's wet, but there's no.
Yeah, I don't remember what I did. Okay. I just remember that I flat out lied about it. Yeah. And that story sticks out because that was the one and only time in my entire life that I lied.
Yeah, so, sure. I mean, obviously.
Yeah. And that was just last week. So that was, yeah, I'm 46 now, and my dad checks and makes sure that I brush my teeth on a daily basis, which is good. I think that's important. So the reason we bring that up, lying, is because I fundamentally believe, are you ready for what's going to sound like a kind of a cynical approach to life?
Sure.
I think we're all liars. But I want to kind of say, like, not necessarily that we always lie to other people, but that we're huge liars when it comes to lying to ourselves.
Okay.
Have you ever lied to yourself?
Yes, on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Pretty daily, actually.
Yeah, we're really, really good about that. And that's what a limiting belief is. And so today we're going to talk about this idea of limiting beliefs, which simply defined is something we believe about ourselves that is not true. So that's the important part right there. That is not true. It's something we believe about ourselves that is not true. And then that prevents us or limits us from being the best version of ourselves. So limiting belief, something we believe about ourselves, it's not true. It prevents us, it limits us from being the best versions of ourselves. What do you think about that?
Okay, so I definitely have overcome some limiting beliefs in my life. But I can look back on my past and see how limiting beliefs, whether I believe them about myself or I believe them about the world at large.
Yes.
They have absolutely shaped my life and shaped not only who I am, but like what I do, how I spend my time, what I have as a career. So that's very interesting. I also have a story. Do you mind if story time goes to Liz?
I enjoy story time. Please.
Okay, so this wasn't about me lying, but I'm always a person who kind of knows what I want. I don't have trouble making decisions. I usually react rather quickly to them, and that's just how God wired me. Like I just have easy time making decisions. So all my life, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a physician, like a medical doctor. And that was something that was not known to my family. It was not known in our extended family. There was no one who was like in the medical field. It was kind of like an out of left field type thing. So when I told my parents this, they were kind of like, oh, sure. Like no one really took me seriously. So years into this, I'm probably 12 or so, a dozen years into my life, I said to someone, I really want to be a physician. And this person who was very close to me and had a lot of influence over me said to me, you are not smart enough to be a physician.
Oh.
So I think that it wasn't even hurtful because I just believed this person. Like, oh, well, they would know, like they're older than me. They care for me. They would know and I wouldn't. So check that off the list.
Well, so the podcast, obviously, that we're doing right now, that you out there are listening to, is for both teenagers and for parents of teenagers. And here's what I know. Do you want to hear what I know? Are you excited about hearing what I know?
I always am.
Oh, yes. I'm excited to tell it. Parents and teenagers and podcast hosts all have limiting beliefs. So this podcast is so appropriate really to anyone who is listening. And if you're still kind of thinking like, okay, well, what is a limiting belief? How do I have them? I haven't really identified those yet in my life. Here's what I would say. Limiting beliefs often begin with some of these phrases. Recognize any of these? I can't, fill in the blanks. Or I'm too, maybe it's I'm too old, or I'm too young, or I'm too tall, or too short, or too skinny, or too fat, or too dumb, or too whatever words we choose to put in there. It's those kind of things that are limiting beliefs that typically we believe something about ourselves that isn't true, and then that limits us from moving forward on something that otherwise we would have and should have done. So you kind of talked about a limiting belief of at the time that affected how you pursued a career, and you ended up being a nurse, which is a great career, and I'm very happy that you're a nurse. But maybe you would have pursued a different career in the medical profession had you not experienced the limiting beliefs you had surrounding what it is to be a doctor.
Right. Exactly.
So here's one of mine. I get to do a lot of speaking and teaching in camps and conferences and schools and churches and anywhere that will kind of listen to me. And I get to speak to parents and families and teenagers, and I love doing it. However, there's a limiting belief that I tend to have that says, I'm not good enough to be speaking in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And if I listened to that, I wouldn't be a speaker.
Right.
If I allowed that idea of I'm not good enough to be up here speaking in front of you, if I allowed that to affect my decision making, well, then I wouldn't be speaking anywhere.
Yeah.
And so in a moment, that's kind of my example. Hopefully by now, if you're listening, you're kind of starting to think of your own examples of limiting beliefs, because what I want to do is go through a little bit of a process of how we can start identifying and destroying those limiting beliefs in our lives so that we are not held back by them.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that.
So how do we destroy limiting beliefs? Number one, simply identify them.
Yeah, that's a huge part.
Yeah,
it's challenging to do that because we just kind of assume things. We don't really know they exist until we kind of turn around and look at it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And a lot of these limiting beliefs go back to when we were kids. There's ways that we live our lives that directly connect to limiting beliefs that we embraced when we were children. So the first thing we do is go through a process of identifying them and then writing them down. We literally take the time to think about them and to write them down. Start a list. And you might only come up with 2 or 3 when you sit down and start thinking about them. But over time, I think you'll find that you have a lot more than 2 or 3, because when I have taken the time to go through my limiting beliefs, the list can get pretty long. And then number 2, and this is for our listeners who come from more of a faith background, but pray through them. When you've gathered that list and you look and you say, here are all the lies that I believe about myself. Here are the things that are keeping me from becoming the best version of myself. What does it look like to just regularly go to God in prayer about those things, and just pray through them and confess that to God that you believe these are lies, and to ask him to show you the truth about who you are and how he sees you.
Yeah, I love that idea.
All right. So number 3, or letter C, depending on how you want to look at it, is reframe your belief. All right. So this can be a little tricky, but this is taking that limiting belief and then kind of tweaking it, rewording it, massaging it, reframing it, turning it upside down so that it actually becomes a truth. So for example, I said that one of my limiting beliefs is I'm not a good enough speaker to be standing up here in front of you today. The way I have chosen to reframe that is I have been equipped to do anything God has called me to do. So I go from I'm not a good enough speaker, reframe that to I have been equipped to do whatever God has called me to do.
I love that. I think it's very challenging to do, but so important to do. It can sound a little cheesy and feel a little like cringy when you're actually doing it. You're like, oh, I'm going to be positive about myself. But, that's really what we need to do in many areas until we can retrain our brains to not listen to these lies that we are continually reminding ourselves of.
Yeah, exactly. And in a moment, we're going to go through a couple examples to give you a better idea of what we're talking about regarding reframing your beliefs. But let's keep going through the list for now, and then we'll get to the examples.
Okay.
So the next part of this is after you have reframed your beliefs. So you've written this list down, you've prayed through them, you've reframed them, and now you have a list of reframed beliefs that are truths about yourself. We go ahead and we read them on a daily basis. We write them down somewhere, we post them somewhere, maybe we put them in the lock screen of our phone or on a post-it note on inside of our locker or on the bedroom wall or bathroom mirror, wherever. We put them in a place where we're going to see them every day, and we read them, we recite them, we memorize them, we speak them into our lives on a daily basis so that they become things that we actually believe. You might come up with a reframed belief that you don't believe right away.
Absolutely. 100%. You're not going to believe what you tell yourself right away. You have to dig out all the old stuff first and then plant new positive, realistic but positive thoughts in your brain instead.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's why it's so important to take those reframed beliefs and post them somewhere that you're going to see them on a daily basis and recite them, commit them to memory, and let it over time become the actual truth that you believe and you feel and you know. Okay, so the next part then is tell someone your limiting beliefs. So if you're a teenager, my encouragement to you would be to go to your parents and say, hey, here are some of the limiting beliefs that I have about myself. And here's how I've chosen to reframe them. Or maybe your parents can even help you reframe some of the limiting beliefs you have. But if not your parents, go to someone that you trust, whether it's a teacher or a life coach or counselor, friend, whoever it is. Tell someone your limiting beliefs, and this will help you kind of have some level of accountability, as now someone is aware of your limiting beliefs and they can kind of follow up from time to time and ask you about those things. And so go ahead and tell someone your limiting beliefs.
And my challenge would be here to parents is, parents, feel free to tell your kids your limiting beliefs, because that's going to open up their eyes to their own limiting beliefs, perhaps new ones that they weren't aware of previously. But then also parents, when you're on the receiving end of those limiting beliefs, like your teen chooses to trust you with that information, it's really important that you acknowledge their limiting beliefs, whether you think they're true or not. Like if the kid says, I'm too ugly, you don't want to be like, oh my gosh, you're not too ugly, blah, 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 blah. This is something that your teen feels vulnerable in, is willing to tell you, is looking for help and encouragement with, not like the opposite of what they think. Like, of course, you're so stupid for thinking that. Why would you think you're ugly? You're so stupid. Like that's not what we're going for here. So as your teen is being vulnerable enough to share those limiting beliefs with you, please be aware of how you react, that you don't want to encourage another limiting belief by discouraging them in the previous one they just told you.
Yeah, I think a horrible reframe belief would be, I'm so stupid to think that I'm ugly.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
That's maybe not where we're going. Yeah, that would probably not be good. So, okay. And then the final stage is to kind of just simply fight through them. And this is what we were talking about before. Just because you come up with these reframed beliefs doesn't mean you're automatically going to believe them right away and that you're automatically going to live your life according to them. So there's a little bit of a kind of fight through them, fake it till you make it, until those beliefs become really part of your identity and what you really believe and how you really feel. So fight through them, knowing that this is a process that's going to take some time. So let's talk about some examples. So as we think about how to destroy our limiting beliefs, here's an example. Here's one that might be relevant to many of the teenagers listening. I'm not smart enough to get better grades in school. I know I certainly felt that way when I was in school. I'm not smart enough to get better grades in school. So how do we reframe that in a way that is actually true? And here's how I like to reframe that. With some more effort on my part, and with the help of some key people, I'm smart enough to get much better grades in school.
I think it's an awesome reframe, because it doesn't just mean you don't want to, in your limiting beliefs, you don't want to give yourself false hope. Like, I can do it, you can do it, but you might need to ask for help. You might need to put in more effort. You might need to reorganize.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that, so not only is this limiting, or is this reframed belief true, but it's also kind. It's kind to yourself, whereas most limiting beliefs are not kind. And you want to be kind to yourself as you reframe them so that you can achieve them and can be successful in them.
Yeah, I like that you brought up kindness, because often, like you said, our limiting beliefs are very unkind to ourselves. In fact, we are meaner to ourselves than typically we would be to anyone else on the planet.
Absolutely.
So maybe it's time to actually show ourselves some kindness. Okay, so here's another example, and hopefully this will help to kind of continue to solidify these ideas in your head. I'm never going to be able to run a 5K. I have thought that before. I'm never going to be able to run a 5K. So how do we reframe that as you're thinking like, I want to run a 5K. I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to do that, but I would like to. I think a good frame for something like that is, I'm excited about the day that I complete my first 5K.
Yeah. So when you think about, I'm never going to be able to run a 5K, and then you reframe that limiting belief to say, I'm excited about the day that I'm going to complete my first 5K. I love that because it does show excitement. It shows the end of the goal, or the goal that is in mind, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be easy. Just because you've reframed a limiting belief doesn't mean that you're not going to have to train, or you're not going to be a little sore, or you're not going to have to get up early and go running and actually put in the work. But it does remind you that you actually have the capabilities to do it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there was definitely a time where I thought I would never be able to run a 5K, and I did. And I'm thrilled. And I know some of you listening are like, 5K, I run 3 marathons every week and I do 2 of them backwards. Like I understand maybe to you 5K is not a lot, but to many of us 5K is like an eternity.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully that's helpful as you're thinking about, what are your limiting beliefs? Have you started identifying some limiting beliefs in your life? And if you're not available to, write them down right now, go through this process later and write them down later. Identify what those limiting beliefs are. So I'll ask, I think we should kind of wrap up by asking kind of 2 questions. And this will get you started through that process. Question number 1 is, what is one limiting belief that may be holding you back? So whether you're a teenager or the parent of a teenager, what is one limiting belief that may be holding you back?
And if you don't know, if you are not sure, ask someone close to you. What do you think some of my limiting beliefs are? If they haven't listened to this podcast, you may need to explain what a limiting belief is. But ask someone close to you who knows you well and who will be honest with you. What do you think some of my limiting beliefs are?
Yeah, exactly. I like that a lot. So what is one limiting belief that may be holding you back? And then question number 2, how can you reframe that limiting belief? So whatever that limiting belief was, how can you reframe that? So this is actually a good exercise if you don't want to do it necessarily individually. As a teenager, this is something you can do with your parents. Obviously, parents, you can do this with your teenagers, and just have those open and honest conversations about what your limiting beliefs are, and then talk about how you can reframe them.
I love that. Let's start some familial conversations about limiting beliefs and how we can overcome them to achieve what it is that you want to achieve in life. Maybe you want to be a doctor. Go do it.
Okay, so limiting beliefs, that's where we are today. Something we believe about ourselves that is not true prevents us from being the best version of ourselves. How do we get rid of them? First, we identify them, we write them down. Second, we pray through them. Third, we reframe those beliefs. And then fourthly, we make sure we're reading those beliefs on a daily basis. Fifth, tell someone your limiting beliefs, and then finally fight through them, because this is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. But if you commit to those steps and you really want to eliminate the limiting beliefs in your life, I really, truly believe that you'll be able to do that, and you'll be able to become the very best version of yourself. Liz Woods, final thoughts.
Yeah, I love this. I love limiting beliefs. I love conquering them. The one thing is that when you pull one out, another one typically pops up somewhere. However, you know that you can weed them out of your life and you can accomplish things and grow. And that's like awesome. It's awesome to be able to grow. It's awesome to be able to grow as a person and make your life what you want it to be. It's incredible. It's an incredible gift that God has given us to be able to do that.
Exactly. Parents, teens, thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next time on the Mindset to Methods podcast.
See you later.
See ya.
You've been listening to the Mindsets to Methods podcast with your hosts, ArthurCWoods and Elizabeth Joy Woods. For more information, please visit their website at ArthurCWoods.com and follow them on Facebook and Instagram at ArthurCWoods.